Hey, Fitzy here, back at it again with another one. You've been asking for it. Here it is. I got started on doing the floor work on Crusty. I got the firewall pieced together. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sections of that firewall. It took a bit of thinking to get it straightened away. And I got to use my new bead roller. Works on good. Stick around. All right, a lot of you been asking about this. I'm back on Crusty. Time to start doing the floors and the firewall. There's a lot going on here, and it's going to be done. It's not like I'm going to come in here, just do it all, have it done. This is going to be done in sections, and part of the sections won't be completely finished. I have a lot going on here, okay? I got this firewall section here that I want to start with first. Everything is going to be built off the firewall. And there's a lot of things going on here. I have a transmission to deal with. I have exhaust to deal with. I have foot pedals to deal with. A brake master cylinder, a steering column, a roll cage. And I also got to figure out some way that I can bring it forward to weld onto this upper lip right here. And how am I going to attach it on the bottom side? And attach it on the side. And, you know, there's a lot of things going on here. I'm not going to overcomplicate it. What I went and did here now is I got the mid plate put in place and bolted in. And what I did to start off with is want to figure out how far back I'm going to have my firewall. Right here you see these bolts. These bolts are the same length as the ones I'm using. I'm going to cut the ends off of these. These are factory LS transmission bolts. I'm just going to cut the ends off them here and reuse these bolts here. If I need to save them, I might. I don't know. But there's a lot of room between there. The distance I got from here now back is this bolt here. I can come in here, drop the bolt into the transmission, and tighten it up like so, okay? That's the whole goal, so I can get it all from in here. I thought about getting it from underneath, having a big tunnel in it, and all that type of stuff, but there's a dozen ways you're going to approach this. I thought about having the transmission tunnel removable. I didn't want that where this is a street car. I wanted to put full carpet inside of it, sound deadener, all that type of stuff. I also thought about having access holes inside the car. That's not ruled out yet. Probably just have like a 1-inch hole drilled there with a plug in it. You can just unplug it. But I think by the time it gets the dash and everything, and it gets everything in the car, it's going to be a bit tangly. Over here, there'll be a lot of wiring and stuff like that, and you have to deal with all that. So I just assume stay clear of all that. And I'm trying to figure out ways that I can get at it. It's always been an issue taking a transmission out of a car, especially GM stuff. Trying to get all the bolts on done now. I haven't got to worry about this one here. It's only this one, and the bottom ones I'm willing to say to get from down underneath the car. It's just these three here, these two here, and one over here that you're going to have troubles with getting unbolted. So I want to build it, the firewall back far enough that I can actually clear that. Over here, I want to have the exhaust going down through here. Now, if you look through here, I got this laid across here just to give you an idea where the firewall is going to go. Right there is where I want my firewall to clear. I want my exhaust to go straight down this way here, so I want it back there. So my firewall is going to come down and it's going to bend this way. This is what I'm going to have hit done here. So I actually got clearance for the exhaust to go down underneath the car. You know, there's a lot of things I got to take on here. So on top of that, I got how am I going to attach it to the sides because I got to deal with these roll bar pipes. Up here, you can see I got the pipe right here that goes down, and I got the panel to mount here. The problem I got now is how am I going to work my way around this here? I've been thinking about it. I'm going to build a firewall in a number of sections. I'm going to build the two side sections out here that'll bring me inside the roll cage. I'm going to build a top section here that'll bring me down to the flat firewall. I'm trying to have a nice flat firewall. If I try to make all this all in one piece, it will get tangly, okay? I'm trying to simplify this as best I can. But the main firewall is just going to be a flat piece that's going to come across here that's going to have two bends in it, like so. I'm debating on what I'm going to do over here because I'm trying to get as much pedal room as possible because I need to have my feet coming forward here for a pedal box and brake. So I may change the driver's side and move it forward when I get it all, the original flat firewall made. I also got to deal with steering column because the steering column itself protrudes out of the firewall. Not going to worry about none of this stuff. I'm just going to cut a big blind square hole there now so that's not in my way. And I'm going to cut it from a piece from the roll cage. I'm going to find the point where I want it to mark it over to there. Come back probably this much so I got room to work with it. And I'm just going to make a big square panel, cut it out, that I can lay in there, and then I can start shaping the panel. I'm going to come up as high as I possibly can there just to make it a lot easier. It's going to be tricky getting it in and out, but I want to build it so I can actually take this apart, because I want to be able to put all this together, do it in sections, but have it so I can take it out, because I still got to do the brake pedal and everything. I'm going to get started now, then get a piece of steel and mark out the length and the height, just a square block I'm going to make, big square block, and cut that out to start with. I went and dug up some panels. This is what I'm going to be making everything out of. The floors, the whole works of it. I went out and I brought 3 in to get started with it. I'm just going to turn around now and figure out what I need on this now, and I'm going to cut a piece out of it to start to make the firewall. I got the level centered in the chassis rail itself, and I'm using a square to lay on top of it. Come out to the side here, so I touch the roll cage, and then it comes back about 1 inch. And it marks the put a mark on this here now. I'll measure from there to there. I have one mark on the other side. That'll give me my width overall. I'll measure from here up to here somewhere, and that'll give me my height. And that'll be the first thing that I'll get marked out. Then I'll size it up. This has to come forward about 1 inch from here. That'll come forward 1 inch. That's the reason why I'm leaving it a bit more there, because it's going to tighten it up. So I'll get that figured out now, and we'll get that piece cut out. Okay, I've been sitting here doing some more measurements, figuring things out, and I'm starting to see more things, so I'm starting to address them problems. One thing I do want, and I need on this side here for sure, is a footboard, which is an angle like this here. There's this piece of scrap steel here I got made up as the actual firewall, the shape it's going to be. I want it to come down along the bottom here, and then tip up, and then tip straight up like that there. That's my plan with it. This here ruler here is the back of the bolts, so the firewall got to go to that. And of course, then from side to side. I need to do this way here, because when I put exhaust on this car, if you look down through here, I need to go straight down here, and I need to clear it. And like if I come straight out, went straight down with a squared off floorboard, it's going to bring it out another 2 inches or more out here, and I don't want that, so I had to put that on an angle. Over here, I'm going to do the same thing for both sides, but I may have to change that over here, because I'm not too concerned about having symmetricals on either side. I'm more concerned about getting leg room and brake pedal and gas pedal room over there, so I may put a pedal box in over there. That'll actually give me a little bit more room. This side here, I'm not too concerned about it. I'm more concerned about exhaust coming down through, and then it's just the symmetrics of having a toe board in there, right? And it's nice. I'm not fussy in putting a 90-degree corner in the front floor section of it like that. I always like to have a bit of a toe board on stuff. So I got that figured out, and I got a few measurements. I got to add 1 inch on the bottom. I got to add another inch on the top, because it's still not high enough for me, for my liking. I like to have enough there that I can put a bit of a bend on it. So I'm going to add another inch to that. And because that's going to go up on a slight angle to the cowl section here. It's going to mount across here with spot welds. And that's going to go in on an angle and then tip down, right? That is my plan. Let's take a few more measurements now and draw it up on a piece of steel and get that started. So here's what I got drawn out on the panel. I've after adding a couple of inches on one end of it here, just so to give me a bit more room, up to 24 3/8 of an inch to here now. And I think this was 42 inches, I think it is, along here. It's 42. 42 and a half, say. Yep, 42 and a half. So that's my measurements. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to cut this piece out and get ready now to start sizing up, put a few bends in it. So I got that all cut out, and I got the hinges all cleaned off. I just ran over a bit of 24, I made the cuts and everything on it. I'll have the template here. Now, with this stuff here, building the floors and everything in this car, I'm going to leave this white coating on it for now, okay? I'm only going to grind it where it needs to be, and if I got to put a spot weld somewhere, I'll put it there. I'm going to try to save this, and I'll just scuff it and paint right over it. That way I haven't got to do too much damage to it all. This is a good, this is like a, it's almost like a powder coating on everything, and I've after playing around with it, with the beads and stuff like that, and bead rollers, and it seems to stay there when you actually bead into it, right? So that's a good thing. Here we go. If you look at that there, right? The actual material is still on it, on the bead itself. So I'm not going to worry about stripping it off and whatnot where it need to be. Now my whole goal is here is to bend that like that. But before I make a bend, this is the outer edges here. One here, and there's an outer edge here. They're going to be butting onto another piece of sheet metal. Now, there's no strength there. I want to have an overlap weld. All I'm going to do is have it so it just overlaps this way. Okay, it's just going to overlap. It's going to be spot welded down through there, and that's it. I want to give strength to this section of this lip here. Now, on any production car, I come over in the years, sometimes, anytime they had 2 panels that overlapped and they actually spot welded together, there usually was an indentation or a relief right along this section here. See this lip here? This is what I'm after, okay? I want to put them on the outer edge of this here, right along here. That way, then when I bends this section into it here, the lines are already there, the strength is there. What this does, this adds strength to the panel, okay? Like if you turn around and take that there now, it's very hard to bend that panel like so. Okay. Also, when you goes to weld it, it helps with the heat transfer back through this here. Some guys get carried away with doing floor pans. Like I've watched a lot of guys doing floor pans and everything in cars, and they frame everything out with like 1x2 or a 1x1 square stock or 1 3/4 inch angle iron. They frame it all out that way. I've never ever framed out a floor pan. I completely built cars from the firewall to the trunk in cars. That's a fine example there. All the back of that is all made up. And it's just how the panels are put together. And I don't worry about butt welding, nothing. One thing about floor pans is they're going to be all lap welded and spot welded together is the way they're going to be done. I've always done it that way, and there's lots of strength there. And it always looks tidier. When you get up underneath the bottom of the vehicle, all you see is a nice clean floor pan. You don't see, you know, square stock all throughout the entire bottom of the car. So, and on top of that, where this is a street strip type car, it's going to be added weight to the car. Like I could frame up the firewall and have this welded in place. This is going to stand on its own, and then when everything gets welded to it all the way around, the way the structure is going to be, it's going to be like a big box with pieces coming off it all over the place, and that's where the strength is going to be. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do here now is I'm going to set up the bead roller, and I'm going to turn around and run a bead right to full length of this here on both sides, and I'll have that done. Well, that was a poor camera angle, but you get the point. You can see what I got down here now. I'm going to bend and put in it all along there. Some would say, why don't you just bend it and then try to put it through the bead roller? It's going to be too hard to do then, because you'd be trying to run a bead through an actual bend, and it's too hard to do. I just soon do this now. Now, this will be the front of my firewall, and this is what you'll see along the edge. The other panel will come over on top of that there and rest like so and be spot welded onto that there. That is my plan. That there gives it strength, and it also gives me a nice little spot that when I seam seal it, it'll be nice and tidy and clean, okay? Now, I've got that done. Now what I got to do is I got to mark out now and put 2 bends in it right here. All I did is I marked up the distance that I figured is 1 inch here, and this here is 4 5/8, so I measured from here up an inch, and from here up here 1 inch and 5/8. Then when I took the grinder and I marked it, okay? Because this is the outside of the panel, and I want the bends to go the other way. When I do it this way here, I can actually see where the bends got to be on either side of the panel, okay? This is all covered later on. You won't see them little marks. All right, so I can set this up now in the bender. I'll bend this bend, and then I'll bend that bend. There's my template. This is going to be hard to bend because it's a big panel. See if the old bender can do it. Yes, done it. No problem. There's my little template. Pretty good there. Every time you put a bend in a piece of metal, you make it stronger. I remember working in the trade, working on a lot of like imports, small cars and stuff like that, doing collision work and dismantling the car, cutting all the pieces apart, drilling out spot welds. When the individual pieces were taken apart, they were very flimsy. Like we're talking about inner fender wells, strut towers, all that type of stuff. All that was very flimsy, but when it was all welded together, that's where the strength came from. Now you can see the nice transition you have here now. Going up along here, got that nice little transition down through here. So now it makes my other panel. That'll fit right over the top edge of this here. It'll have a nice line that'll actually have to line up against, right? So now I got the roll put in that there. What you call it? I was went a little bit too far. I got a small roll there, but I got to cut the center out of this anyway for the transmission. So that'll be fine. What I got to do now is I got to mark up and find out where the steering column is to. And cut it out for that. So get that marked out now and figure it out. Get that cut out. I'm just using my template that I had earlier. I got a clamp down there and I come up here and I mark the bottom and I mark the top. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to measure from there to the center here, because that's the center of the firewall, and I'll figure out from there outside and the inside, and how wide that is from the center, and I'm just going to blindly cut a large piece out of it. Not worried about that right now, because I'm going to put another design in there. May have to countersink it in, but I'm going to make a separate panel just for the column itself. So I used my template to mark up. There's the points that I marked up here, and that was my 2 points that I marked off there. All I did then is I wanted to find the center of the panel. Okay, I never get carried away with perfect measurements. I eyeballs it. Okay, I came over there and I measured off 21 inches, okay? Then I come over here and I measured off 21 inches, okay? Then I found the middle of the two of the 21 inches, and that's it. Done the same thing on the car. I measured over, found, just put 25 inches where I thought it was 2, come from the other side, measured 25 inches, and wherever they fell down in between them, I marked the distance. It could be longer. You could go 26 and go 26. It's still going to be in the middle of them two numbers. All you're doing is just getting a smaller area to take your measurement from, the distance from two of them there, instead of having to try to find the perfect center. And it doesn't have to be just so for what I'm doing here now, okay? So then what I did then is I measured from the center line to the outside of the steering column, from the center line to the inside of the steering column. And then I put my marks, and then I just squared everything up. So there's where my steering column is to. Now, that's going to be over this way, or over this way, or up this way, or over this way. Could be one you got. I'm going to go in here now and cut a blind 4-inch hole right out of there. You may think it's a bit elaborate. I want room to move, okay? I want to be able to figure this out. I'll be working this section later on. There'll be another section made, welded into this here, or spot welded into this here. I haven't decided yet. That'll actually take the column in. I want the column to come out through the firewall a certain way, and I may have to angle this section here just to make it look nice, okay? So I'm not worried about that panel, so I'm going to mark off an inch all the way around this now, or mark 4 inches from the center of that there, and just blindly cut a big square out of that. All it is, I just drew 1 inch all the way around it. I don't know if that's 4 inches or not. It's a little more than 4 inches. I'm not too concerned about it. You may think that might be a bit extreme. It'd be nice to have a nice round hole coming out through the firewall. But you got to realize you're trying to get everything centered. You got too many things going on here now, and you're trying to make this perfect too, okay? Don't be concerned about it. Come back to it later. Just cut a large hole out so that it doesn't interfere with you moving this panel around and line it up. So I'm going to go ahead now, cut that out, and get it out of my way. Oh my God, he got it ruined. He cut a piece out of the center of it. That'll be perfect. Let's go over and test fit this now. So that's the starting. You can see it down here now. I'm going to look in past that there. And I start backing up. You can see the bottom of the frame rail. Okay? I got clearance there. Same one on this side here. Going down underneath, dropping it down underneath the car like that. I've done that now for exhaust reasons, and it also looks a lot nicer when you got toe board there. I got it brought up on the bolts right here now. I like to give it a little tiny bit more spacing. You can see the way the steering column is now. The top of it just juts out a small bit, and the bottom's in behind it. I want to make this so it's countersunk in. I want a section of that to actually be protruding out through. I want, you know, this much of it here, I want it outside in the car itself, right? So I make a panel up that'll fit right over that, and it'll all drop back, and it'll be part of this here. So this here will actually step in and come up to the column, right? And that's that. I got it pretty well centered between the roll cage there now. We're going to go from side to side. And I just come in here and then I clamped it in place. Right? A couple of clamps on it. That's the starting of the firewall. Up top now, there's lots of room up there. I'm going to put a flange on that so I can go forward with it. And I think I should be able to get a pretty good flange on that. But I'm very pleased with it so far. See, now I can build these side pieces here. I can use the this here section now. I can mark this out here and then come back probably a ½ inch or so off of this mark here and then just trim it off, and that'll be my transmission tunnel. And I should be able to get transmission in it with that, because I'm going to eventually fit the transmission in it with the firewall before I weld it all in. I want to set this all up here now so that I got a spot for it to go, and I think I'm going to drill the frame rails, put 2 clecos in them so that it'll return there every time. And then I can start working on making all the other panels up. I got to make a top panel up, and I got to make 2 side panels up. And I'm going to have the whole thing so it all clecos together. That way I can take it all apart and take it out and get it all prepped and everything. Then I can start welding it all in piece by piece. So, but that's the start of it. That's, you know, pretty simple. I didn't worry about making it too complicated on the outside edge. I like this firewall to look nice, okay? Eventually I'll probably put a bead or something in around here. I might put something up on top. I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet. I do all that by ear as I'm going. I just know for a fact that I'm going to have panels coming out here, and I want to have these steps in it here and here so that there's lots of strength in it, right? So I'm going to go ahead now and start sizing up a few more things here and make sure it's in the right spot. And I think I'm going to start sizing up, maybe that top panel. I'll put that on next, because then I can design everything outside that. Yeah, okay, I'll probably make that top panel next. So here's my plan. I have that line that I have drawn there from earlier. I'm going to bend that forward about 45 degrees. I'm going to play this by ear, and I'm going to make a piece to go here that'll just slide in, and I'll get this shape here, right, so I can clamp on here. And then I'm going to turn around in, and I'm going to bend a 45 on that. That'll actually mount to that panel there. So I'll take that out there now, put a 45 on it, and start trimming up a piece to fit there, which is right here. Continuing on, that's the piece I cut the panel out of. So I'll just cut that off there, and that'll be the piece I'll start with. So I'm here now, and what I did is I cut that piece off. I haven't bothered to take the lip off it yet. I come over here, this comes over this way, about this far here, and I trimmed it back so I can get it to fit here. And I trimmed it back so I can get it to fit over here. So I got it, that comes over about here somewhere, and it's cut at an angle, and I just trimmed it off. Then all I did is I took a pencil, and I marked it along there, where I clamped it on, and I'll take that off there, and I'll cut it off there, and then that'll line up with that lip there, and that'll be where that'll be spot welded on. Then I can put the firewall back in it, and mark the back section where the bend gotta go. Here you can see where I marked it, where I trimmed out the corners, okay? I'm going to take that, trimmed out both corners. I'm going to take that now and just trim that whole front lip right off of that. So here's where I'm to. I got the bend put in the top side there. And I got the other piece laid up in place, and I marked both ends of it. Both ends of it where I'm going to put a bend to. You can see I got a clamp down up here. It's all trimmed off, and I got that fitting right nice. So I'm going to take this off now and find out where the marks are to on either end. And then I'm going to draw a straight line across there. And that'll be my bend that'll go downwards. Right? So I found a measurement of 2 5/8 of an inch from here to the edge here. So I marked it, and then I struck it with the grinder there. Done the same thing over here. Struck it with the grinder here, so that's my distance here. Now, I got this edge up here. What I want to do, because the way the bend has got to go on this here, I want to do a step here on the front lip. I want this to go back and step down. And so what I'm going to do now is I got it marked there now with scribe. I took the scribe right here and scribe it along there. And that measurement there now is about the size of from the guide that's on the bead roller to the bead itself. I'm going to try to use it with the guide and just keep an eye on it as I'm going, because I know it's just got a tendency to wander off a bit. I'm not doing a straight edge anymore, but I'm going to use the guide as something to go by, and I'm going to put a bead. Now I'm not going to be able to see it if I folds it up any, but that's it. I'm going to put this in it first before I put the bend on the back side of it, so that way when I get it set up, it will this here will be stepped down, because when I put the bend in this the opposite way, I can't go put this bend in this then, because the dies are going to be in the way down here. All right, let's get this bead. So here you can see what I got done. You can see where it steps down now. This will step up to the lip, okay? And then it steps down below it. And then I got the roll going off the back end of it that'll fit to the firewall itself. Now I'm going to have to trim a lot of that off, but what I'm going to do for now is I'm going to go over, test fit this on the car, and see what it's fitting like. Now I'm to the point now we're getting closer, I can start using Clecos. Once it gets this piece where I want it to go, and I'm happy with it, I'll start Clecoing all this together. Then I can start trimming everything up to make it fit nicer. There's my first test fit. The bend that I got on the firewall itself is a bit much. I got to take it out now and I got to bend it back a bit, take a bit off it. It's about 45 degrees on the other one, and there's probably more on that one. So I'm going to take that off there now and get it so it lays back a bit better and two of the panels fits together nicer. So I got a lot better fit up there now, and I took a pencil then I marked it. So because I got to cut the excess off the back side of the top panel. So I got that marked there now. I'm going to take it out and cut it off. So there's the line that I marked in the car itself. And all I did is I took a ruler, laid the ruler on top of it, and just marked it again. That's enough lip on that here. So I'll take the cutting wheel now and I'll cut off all this here. Don't need none of that. And that'll be my flange for the back side. And there you have one lower cowl panel. All I'm going to do now is go over and fit that in place and make sure it's square and everything. And then I'm going to put a couple of spots in it for clecos to hold that to the firewall. Okay, I want to point something out here. When I was putting these panels in the car, so let's say this is the cowl section, the little small pieces I just trimmed up, okay? What I was doing, this was the firewall. I was overlapping it this way here. I was tucking this in behind this here so I can actually find out where I can mark this up here. So I can actually cut the inner section, cut it off to the right length. This is the way I had this done when I was putting this together. But this is not how I'm going to finish it. I'm going to finish it so the overlap is this way here, okay? Reason for that is this is out in the elements. This is in the engine compartment. So any moisture or anything here could fall off of this here going this way. But if you overlap it this way, any moisture can creep down and get in between the two panels that way there. But if you overlap it this way, you just get a full flow from one to the other. I'll do the same process for floor pans as well. I'll show you that later on when it gets into it. But it's the same concept. You're always thinking about how moisture will move. Like you can probably, yes, might want to say it will blow up over here. But the problem with it is usually you leave it out on a damp night or like, you know, I'll be out to the track and it's cool and damp. Moisture is going to want to run this way, okay? It'll all bead and it'll run this way here. But if it goes this way here, it got a tendency to want to get caught in there. And then what ends up happening, if you got a ear spot that you missed with seam sealer, it'll get down between it and then it'll rust in between the two of them. Just a little thing I want to point out of how I overlap the panels. Some of you may be wondering how I'm setting this up so it's perpendicular or how straight up and down. All I've been using is I've been just using the square off the frame rail. Okay? I've been using that on top of the frame rail, coming back to the firewall like that, and making sure the firewall is straight. It's 90 degrees to the frame rail. That's all I've been doing with that. So I've been constantly checking that. I got that in place there now, clamped in. I can get that ready now if I want to start putting some clecos in some spots because I think that's pretty well where it's too. I'll have a quick look. I'll go over it all now, take a few measurements, make sure everything's square and in the middle and whatnot. And then I'll start clecoing this here all together. So then I got this much of it all completed. So everything has a home now. Cleco's up there. Cleco's along the top here. And I got a couple inside in here. That'll help me line everything up again so I know where everything goes. So now that I got all that figured out, all them panels are there, I'll start working on these side ones and get them made up. So the first thing I'm going to do over here is I'm only going to come up just a little bit past this roll cage here, where the top of this comes up. I'm not going to worry about going right around. I'm going to come halfway up over this way here and then come halfway down over. and that way I can actually fill in the hole where this actually passes through the firewall. Like, I'm not going to go through the trouble trying to drill a hole in a piece of steel and trying to slide it, because you can't, because it's welded on both ends, so that's not going to work. So all I'm going to do now is I measure from here, about a little bit above the middle of the roll cage, and down underneath the bottom side of it is about 19 inches, and I measure from here into the doorpost, and then add an inch for a flange, and it come out to be about 6 inches. So I'm going to go cut a piece of steel out now, 6 inches by 19. So I got the piece cut out, and like before, I'm going to start off, I'm going to have the flange section lap over the flange section that I got there. So I'm going to put a flange on it first, using the bead roller. Step one. As you can see here, I got another piece here, and I got the flange put on it. This is my whole goal with this here, is to have my flanges overlap like so, okay? Then I'll just spot weld them down through here. So playing around with, should I have the flanges upwards? And I find it's bringing the panel too far forward. It seems to fit nicer when I put one upside down and the other one forward. And they seem to fit together real nice. And it just looks more appealing that way. And that way this panel and this panel pretty well stay the same height then, right? Because if you flip it over, what ends up happening then is this panel here has to be forward more, because it's on top of the other one, not against it like so, right? And that's the way I want to do it. So I had to figure out what way I was going to do this, so I can figure out my next bend. I measured from this point on the firewall and the car, and I measured over to the doorpost. And this is the measurement I got here. It's 4 7/8, so I marked that, and then put the little grinder mark on it, because I wasn't sure which way I was going to bend it. But this is the way it's going to be bent on the car, like this here. So this flange is going to be bent this way here, so I'll bend it the other side. Alright, let's get that bent up. Now it's kind of hard to actually show you what I'm doing, but what I'm doing now is I'm notching out for the doorpost, and I'm also notching out for the roll cage. So this is just going to slide up underneath it. So I'm going to go ahead and trim all this up and get that trimmed out and get that fitting, and then I'll bring you back and show you what I got done. So here's the notch and the lever cut out. That's the notch for the pipe. This will just sit up the side here now. See, it's up very nice. Notched around the pipe. There you have it. Now I got a mark here now for a bend down on the bottom. Probably keep hearing the noise in the background, that's the heater. Okay, so I got the marked here. That's where the bend is too. When I fit that up in place, I marked it right on the bend. Then I turn around and I notched on the back side and I cut a bit of the corner out of it. Like I never cut that square. It's a little bit of leeway, so this could be a roll edge instead of a sharp corner, right? I just got my old I-beam here now. Gonna lay it over that there. And just bend it over. That's the template. But it needs to be a bit more than that. So I'll trim that up here now and bend it some more, and I'll do then is I'll mark it down here and I'll bend the bottom as well. There you have another piece put in there. Fits up nice round roll cage, got a nice lap seam there. The bend on the bottom of it, a couple of clecos hold it in place. There is the flange section on the inside that you see going up by the doorpost. That'll be spot welded along there. And of course down on the bottom I'm going to have to trim that off along there. You can see where that got to be cut off. I'll just trim that off so that's all even across there. And then it goes up and you can see how nice it fits underneath the roll cage. And I got to weld a little small piece up in the corner right here. I'm going to weld a piece on that lip there to get a lip put on that. All I got left to do now is I got to make the upper section for it. So that's going to be the tricky one. But I might go ahead and make the other side first and have it done. And well, I still got it fresh in my mind how I did this one. So let's get that done. There you have it. That's the second one. Pretty simple. Same process as the other side. And you can see how I cut this out up here. What I did is I measured from this line here over to the roll cage out here. And then what I done is I marked that point on this panel, and then I just took a piece of roll bar pipe and drew it out on it, halfway down the roll bar pipe, and just trimmed it out. Now the bar itself is not straight through, it's on an angle, so then I had to grind it a bit so it actually could turn. So you can actually turn the panel, and it fits in there nice tight fit. Got that all set up there now. Got the flange on the inside as well. I'll trim all that up and get that all prepped later on, but the panel is made. Just fine tuning got to be done on it now. That's that. So now I got to go up and I got to start figuring these ones out. I got 2 more panels to make and the firewall pieces are made. So here's what I come up with. Just started out with a flat piece. I went and ran a bead through the end of it here, bent it on a 90, grinded it out. Now here, what I done here is I made it a little bit longer. I grinded the curvature back farther. That way you can see this a bit longer. And what ends up happening then, you can see that I got it dimpled here. This is an overlap. This overlaps on the lower section. So the firewall comes to about here, the side piece. So this will overlap it, okay? Now how I done that is I just done the old trick with clamping it in the vise and a chisel and tapping that back like so, and then it ends up with a little relief like that, okay? So I'm going to go over now and test fit that in the car. It's a bit crude the way it goes because the cowl section rolls off on the top, off here, and there's a little bit of a gap in here that I'm going to have to, so I'm going to have to weld a piece in here to come down here that I can spot weld onto the side. I'm trying to seal everything off, so just, you know, a little smidgen of seam sealer, but right now I can stick my finger in here. There's a gap probably 3/8 of an inch along here that just goes in to the actual driver's compartment. And one thing with me is that I want to have the firewall completely sealed off from the engine bay, so that if anything fire or anything occurs, it won't find its way into the driver's compartment. Not through my doing anyway. So I'm going to go over and test fit this in place now, and I'll show you how it fits. And there you have it. You can see where the roll cage comes out through here. And where this overlaps, comes down here, steps up and overlaps the bottom piece. And there's a 90 degree that mounts inside. There's a bit of a gap up here. You can just see the darkness there. That's an actual gap. I got to put a tab on that. That'll come down here. That'll actually spot weld across here. But you can see it go along the top. It'll spot weld up along here, or along the front. And then it'll come up here and it'll spot weld down through here. Is what it'll do. I'll spot weld it from the bottom side, but it'll be welded onto this section here, right? But that's it for that one there now. I'm going to go ahead now and get the other side made. So here I had the second one made. I had to modify a few things. The distance here is a little tiny bit different. I don't mind pointing that out. Maybe the roll cages are probably in different locations. The firewall is the same distance from here to here to here to here. So that's it. So I'm off a little tiny bit on the roll cage. Sue me. I got everything done now. All I got left to do is to put a little dimple in this here, and I got all the pieces made for the firewall. So let's get that made up there now. I'll show you how I done that. I've done it many times before in videos, but I'm going to show you again now. What I want to do is I want to step this out this way here. That's all I'm doing. Look, I only want to do it to that corner. I got a mark made there where the other panel comes up from underneath it. But basically what's going on there is that when I put it on the car, this is going on. Okay, it's overlapping like so. But I would like to have both of these here, this section here and this here, the same level. So I got to bring this out so when the overlap is done, it's got a nice fit to it, right? So I got a mark there, and all I do is take this high-tech tool. I'm missing me hammer. I'll take a big one. High-tech tool, piece of old flat bar, must have this 20 years. I use it for everything. I used to have it for cutting off spot welds, soft metal, so I've got to be sharpened a lot. All I'm doing is I'm putting that up against that there and tapping it inwards. And what you're left with then is a little indentation there, and all I got to do now is just dolly this up so it fits nice. There you got that there now, so when that fits behind it, that is the same height. Went ahead then, just grinded it all off. You can see the little step in it. Right? And that'll overlap the other panel now, and it'll look right nice in factory. Me and my factory. So before I show you the last of the firewall, you see me using my bead roller. This is a new bead roller that I built. This started out like one of them Harbor Freight bead rollers. If you're not familiar with this bead roller, I have a full build in my list. I'm going to set it all up. And you can actually see how I built all this. It's just a winch motor and a bunch of Amazon parts and a bunch of scrap steel. And I'm amazed at how good it made, how good it works. Some pointed out about slipping underneath this here. That's how I solved that, okay? They figured that this here, because they saw this over here was stuck up in the video on the bead roller, and there was a gap there, and I could see what they're talking about, it'd slip underneath it. But I clamped this here. The problem I made is the sides of this here, I shouldn't have gapped them down here. I should have left it tight. But that's a simple fix. Just all I got to do is do that. And each time I'm using the bar, just clamp a couple of them on it, and I'm good to go. As I was putting this together, I talked about these screws, and I said it'd be cool if I had black ones. One of you guys, sorry, I can't remember which one he was. After going through the list of stuff to see who it was, and I couldn't find it again. It's kind of hard when I turn around and I talk to someone and I put a post up or whatever like that on my YouTube channel. It just seems like it's so hard to go through them all, try to find it again. But I talked about getting screws for these. They would have been nice if they were all black. One of you guys sent me one of them. I greatly appreciate that. Black screws. I'm going to have to change all them out now and replace all them there and put the nice cool black screws on it. They'll look like an industrial piece then. It won't look right homemade with the shiny ones. So, greatly appreciate that. And all the stuff that you guys do for me. And hopefully you enjoyed this one here. And you can see that I used it for the first time. I'm doing the Firewall and Crusty. And it's going to be used a lot more on Crusty. And there it is, up in place. Hard to see there. Lighting's not the best. But I got it up in place, pleased with it. The way it all fits in the ring up inside there. The way it all fits down through there. Got the other one installed as well. They were a bit tricky to get done. But you can see the way they overlap on the panels. Right there, and where it goes through the roll cage. And that one there got a little bit more of a seam opening on the roll cage. But that's a big undertaking there, getting all them pieces made up, figuring out where everything's going to go, how far back the firewall was going to be, where it was going to meet up top, on the top side up here, where it was all going to go, the panels and stuff like that. So I got it all made now. I got a cutout for the transmission tunnel, and I got to make up a piece for the steering column, because you can see now where that sits. It's partly in, and the bottom side of it is just like, it's tucked right inside of it. So I got to make a cup that'll fit in there, because I want to have about a ½ an inch of that end section right here. I want that protruding outside, because I got a cap that got to go on over it. And I'll work on that later. I also got to do the brake pedal. I ordered in the mass center, waiting for that to show up. And I'm using an old generic one. I think it's out of a shed pickup or something upstairs. I'm going to modify to fit there. I can't go welding none of this in until all that's figured out. And I'll go from that. But that's it. That's the first chance of doing some metal work on Crusty. It's a big undertaking doing the firewall, because I did know where nothing was to. A lot of the rest of the car, the rest of the floors, I've got an idea where I'm going with it. The firewall was a bit tricky, because I had to deal with that. I got to deal with this. I had to deal with the roll cage. I had to deal with this cowl section. All that played a part of how everything was going to fit together. And it was kind of hard to actually sit down and make a plan. To say, okay, let's do this, do this, do this. It's almost like I did this just on the fly. I knew how far back I had to went, so I never thought too far ahead. I knew my firewall had to be at a certain point that I'd be able to get at the bolts for the transmission. Then I figured, okay, I got that made up. Then when I got that made up, then I could see how far the top was. Then I started designing and building the top section. When I got that done, then I knew that I couldn't make nothing around the roll cage in one piece. So it had to be made in two. So I said, I'll make the bottoms, and I got them made, and then I made the tops. Simple as that. Figured the tops were going to be harder than I thought they were. It's just a matter of the way I had to bend the metal and stuff like that. Just had to keep playing with it till I got it. It was kind of hard to actually, when I was making them, because it was so small and tidy, and the way I kept fitting them, to try to test fit them. Mostly what I did is I left a lot of metal and I just rolled it right over so it fit in there, and then I had to be rolled back. And so instead of cutting it all off and then doing it 2 or 3 pieces, I want to do it in one piece up in them top corners. But that's it. I think I'm going to leave this one here because I'm waiting on parts and I don't want to get too far ahead on this one here. And the next one now, I'll get started on this here. Hopefully I'll have the master cylinder and we'll get the brake done and we'll get the transmission tunnel cut out and stuff like that. And that there will be ready to go. And you never know, I might have to install this because in order to do the brake booster, all the bracketry and everything, I don't think the firewall is going to be able to come out anymore. So I may have to build that with the firewall in place. So anyway, I hope the tips were good. And until next time.